Okay, so there still isn't a proper working version of RetroPi for Raspberry Pi 5 to download, apart from custom builds that people have done. So I thought I'd do one and specifically add PlayStation 2, Wii and GameCube emulators because they don't come easily installed. I've also installed RetroPi Extra to allow you to add loads of extra things in it as well. So I've made that available as a download and that link is in the description, which is this one here. I'm deliberately in incognito mode because I want to see if anybody can download it, if you need to be signed in or anything, which you don't. Look, so download, and I'm going to save that. Looks like it's going pretty slow, but it's working. Now there are some retro gaming builds available for Pi5, so if we start up Imager and choose device, so Raspberry Pi 5, choose OS, and we've got a section for emulation and gaming. You can see the only one in there is Recalbox, which is actually very good, but it hasn't got PS2, and I don't think it's got Wii and GameCube as well. But for the older systems, as you can see, supports over 100 plus. And also Batacera is very good as well. So we go to their downloads page. There's a Raspberry Pi 5 build for that. But if we have a look at Raspberry Pi 5, we do get GameCube, but not PS2. If you're on an x86 based PC, you pretty much get everything. So very fully loaded. But I just wanted to make it easy on Pi 5 to get those more advanced systems running that weren't officially supported. Okay, that's finished downloading. I don't need to unzip it or anything. I can just open Raspberry Pi Imager, choose OS, and scroll all the way down to the bottom. Use custom. And we're looking for the RetroPi image here. So RetroPi PS2 Lead PSP. I've got a 32 gig memory stick in here. Let's hit next. Don't make any changes. And yes. Pop your password in and come back when that's all done. It will take a while because it's quite heavily compressed. Okay, so that's all finished, so I can shut this down. I'm going to take out the NVMe drive that it was running from. So it's only running from the SD card that's in there. And let's boot that up. You want a compatible controller for this bit. It'll be already configured for Xbox 360 controllers. If you've got a different one, you'll have to set it up manually. I go into more detail about that later on in the video. So if we hit start and go to quit and quit emulation station. So now if I type start X, you can see it boots you into the desktop environment. Now because this is a backup of an operating system, it doesn't automatically use all of the space on your storage. So what you need to do is open a terminal and do sudo apt install gparted. It's useful to have this anyway. Click yes and let that install. And once that's installed, you can close the terminal and launch it from here. So gparted, and here, so the password is pi. This is the partition. I started to try and put games on it for this demo and I realized there wasn't enough space. So right click it and resize and just drag it all the way over to the right and then resize and then tick and apply. So that's all done. So I can close that down. So this is where we're going to add our ROMs. I can't tell you where to get ROMs or BIOS files, but what I would say for RetroPi is if you try and find a full set on Google or archive.org and then you're just putting it in the right folder. So the BIOS files will go into RetroPi and BIOS. You can see there's a few folders and things there. I've got a PS2 folder. You need this file. So if you do a search for that, it needs to go in this location. And then all of your ROMs need to go in the relevant folder. So if you go into ROMs, so if it's Game Boy Color, GameCube, Genesis, N64, and so on. And then once you've done that, and you can do all that within the operating system, so you can do it in the browser, you could do it from a USB stick if you've already got the ROMs and the BIOS files, and just drag them into those relevant folders. So just Home and RetroPi. Now you might notice that some of the systems that you want aren't there. So say for instance you wanted PSP, it's not installed, Dreamcast isn't installed, and there'll be several others that are missing from here. But I wanted to keep the download quite small, and I realised that a lot of retro gaming is about the era that you kind of grew up with, or a particular system that you're into. So I didn't put everything on there, but it's very easy to, because I've got RetroPi Extra installed, and also RetroPi gives you lots of options as well. So if we shut this down and do a restart, that will take us into RetroPi, and we can use the controller for that bit. So you can see I've added some ROMs already, so lots of systems are showing up. But if we go into RetroPi and RetroPi setup and just hit OK. So now manage packages. So if you wanted to install something extra, if you first look in optional to see if it's there. So say for instance PSP I mentioned before. So you can see that one's in red. Keep going, there'll be one, yeah, PPSSPP. And also there's a Dreamcast one there as well. And I would imagine Redream is probably here. But let's do the PSP one. So this won't be in my download, but this is just to show you how to install a system. And depending on the system, sometimes it takes ages, sometimes it doesn't take very long at all. Regarding updating this, so I'm using the very latest build at the moment of Raspberry Pi OS and the latest for RetroPi. You often break things by updating RetroPi, so I mean you can always go back to that download, but just bear that in mind. If everything's working, maybe don't bother updating it. If your favourite games are playing fine, you can just leave it as it is. I've done several videos on preloaded builds of RetroPi and Recalbox and things like that. I've also got videos on various different things in RetroPi, so installing themes, running your games and BIOS from a USB stick, which is what I generally do, and also stripping ROMs from an existing build. So if you download a fully loaded build but you just want one ROM out of it to put onto something else, then I show how to do that. Okay, that finished installing. I wanted to show also the experimental packages. So some of these are the extra bits that were added by RetroPi Extra, but also some are just in experimental. So Redream, which is the Dreamcast one I was talking about. And we keep going all the way down. As you can see, there's loads of things in black that you can add to this. We've got ports as well of various different systems like Doom, Quake 2, Steam Link. We've got different themes that you can add as well, but you can also add some through RetroPi. Here's the RetroPi Extra bit, so Ether SX2, another Dolphin one, and various other bits in there. But if I go back, the only other thing I wanted to mention, under optional, usbromservice service. So if you're planning to run your ROMs and BIOS files from a USB stick, then you need to enable this. So if I click on that and install, and yes, doesn't take very long this bit, and then configuration and enable. So that means now this system will recognize ROMs on a USB stick if the stick is formatted correctly, and I've got a separate video on that. So let's quit out of this and reboot. So now we have several ROMs in here, and if I wanted to play say N64, Micro Machine 64, I haven't done any configuration on this, so we'll just see what it does by default. Usually it's very good. Yeah, working absolutely fine. Happy with that. I'm not sure I allowed the audios because I've still left it set on HD. Oh, nightmare. But yeah, definitely working fine. It's such a good multiplayer game, this. And we'll try PS2. So this is Spider-Man. Yeah, looking good. And we can exit that with Start Select and the Xbox button. So this next part of the video is actually going back in time because it's how I set it all up. If you want to see how to add PS2 and also how to configure the controller for GameCube, because in RetroPi it's not as straightforward as the one in a desktop environment. So this is the tutorial, but as I say, you can download it if you want. I've made it available through Google Drive, and that will make the whole process a lot simpler. Enjoy the tutorial. So I'm running the operating system from an NVMe drive here. Let's pop an SD card in. This is a 32 gig SD card I'm going to use. And launch Imager. So choose device, Raspberry Pi 5, choose OS, I'm going to use the 64-bit version of Raspberry Pi OS, and my storage is my 32 gig card I've just put in. Hit next. I'm not going to change any customization settings, and yes. I'll pop your password in. Okay, that's all done, so I can shut all this down. Remove the NVMe drive that I was using for the operating system before, and I'm going to boot up from the SD card that's in there. Now just follow all the on-screen prompts to get it set up for your region. Create a username and a password. I'm going to use RetroPi and Pi for the password. And if you're going to use Wi-Fi, log into your Wi-Fi. I'm using wired, so I'm not going to. I'm going to leave the browser on there as Chromium, and we're going to update the software. So we're all up to date. Let's hit OK and restart. Now we need to make some changes to the config.txt for PS2. So sudo nano /boot /firmware /config.txt. And then somewhere in here, and what I can do is put for PS2. So when you hash out something, it means that it ignores it, but this line it will do. So kernel equals kernel 8.img. This is something I found out a long time ago because I do a standalone video where you can have PS2 running in the desktop environment like this, but it's also necessary for running in RetroPi. So let's save that with Control X and Y and enter. Now we'll install Vulkan. And yes. Let's also install Git. And this is something I saw from a TikTok from the official Raspberry Pi about installing RetroPi on a Pi5. So git and lsb release. Okay, looks like it didn't need to be done. Now we can go to RetroPi, and the reason I do this in a desktop environment is I just think it's a lot easier copying and pasting everything over. So if we do RetroPi setup and go to the GitHub, which is here, we go down to the script and start here. So we can copy that and paste. Then we can execute it here. So paste that in. We don't really need this bit anymore, so let's pop this in the middle. Okay, so OK. There's a warning about 64-bit not yet fully supported, but lots of things do work great. So initially we'll do a basic install, and yes. Now this definitely takes quite a long time, so just let it do its thing. Okay, so that's all installed, and if you want to add any extra packages you can from here. So we've got optional packages, so we can click on anything that's not red essentially. And if we look through this, so we won't find the Dolphin or the PS2 emulator, and that's because they're not officially supported on Raspberry Pi. And we go to experimental. You can see Dolphin is here actually. So it will let me install Dolphin. And while it's doing that, I'm just going to create a text document with the name of the .bin file that you need. And if I save that in the location where you need to put it, which would be in the RetroPi folder and BIOS, PS2 file needed, I'll call it. So let's just double check that it's put that in the right place. RetroPi, BIOS, yeah, PS2 file needed. So what you need to do is search for that. I can't tell you where to find it. It's out there, and it needs to go in this location. And this is thanks to Make or Break Society's video that showed me this, but you don't need it when you do it on the desktop version. You still need a BIOS, but it's a different one, and it looks like RetroPi needs it to be in exactly the right place and named exactly the right way. Oh, and turns out it also needs to be in a PS2 folder, so PS2, so let's drag that into there. There we go. So I've got it in the downloads folder. So let's cut that and put it in the PS2 BIOS folder. And I'm going to need a PS2 game as well. So I've just plugged a USB stick in. This is my normal RetroPi stick. So in the PS2 folder, let's go with one of my favourite games, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX, and I'm going to put that in Home, RetroPi, ROMs, and there won't be a PS2 yet, but I can make one. PS2 folder, and let's paste that in there. So you can see if I go back what systems are already supported. So at the moment there's no GameCube folder, even though I'm installing Dolphin, but after a restart it will probably put it in there. So that's still going. It does take ages, and that's just for the Dolphin build. So if there's any game systems you're particularly looking for, oh, and it's added GameCube and Wii now, look, because it's installed it, then you can add it from here. So click on here, go to back, and so we've got experimental and optional. But I want to see if the PS2 is going to work first of all. So I'm going to close this down and go to the RetroPi Extra GitHub. And the one I want is this one by XR Kuniv, and all the script is down here. So again, we can just copy it over. And we've got options here, look, install all RetroPi extra modules. Let's go with that. And yes, and OK. Then we can go exit. And if we go back to here, we can do RetroPi setup again. Then when we go to manage packages, we can go for experimental. And we should get some extra things in here. So we've got RetroPi Extra and Aether SX2, that's the PS2 one. So it will install that, and yes. And that didn't take very long at all. So we can go back, and you can see if there's anything else you want in here. So there's another Dolphin, Flycast, OpenBOR, lots of RetroPi Extra here as well, Duck Station, which is very good for PS1. And all sorts of extras, but I'm not going to put any of those on for now. Let's go back and exit. And I want to reboot now anyway, so let's just type reboot so I can log in. And you can change the password if you want it to be more secure. If you want to change it, you just type in PASSWD and it will give you the option. I'm going to close that because I'm not going to do that now. So if we want to launch RetroPi from here, I don't think it shows up in this bit. No. If we type in emulation station, we don't get it. So let's go sudo raspi -config and go advanced options. And we're going to change from Wayland to X11. Right, let's try again. Reboot. So let's try that again. Control-Alt-T to open a terminal and type emulation station. That's better. So I've got this Xbox 360 dongle plugged in my controller. So let's switch that on and just press and hold a button and follow the on screen. So D-pad up, down, left, right, start and select. And the hotkey I use is the Xbox one in the middle. And then when we press B, there you go. So the only system we've got on here at the moment is PS2, and that's because it's the only one I put ROMs into. So let's try PS2. Dave Mirra, Aether SX2, and it's launched. So let's jump into a game. Right, oh, it looks like I need to change the graphics on this because it's definitely running really slow. Now F9 was the button, oh there you go, F9 works. So F9 changes the renderer, and as you can see, straight away it sped right up. I did a separate video on that. And if I press F9 again, let's see what happens. So that's Vulkan. That should be alright now. Yeah, that feels good. Oh, no, it's slower than the software renderer. It just depends on the game. as to how well it runs, it'd also be worth looking at lowering the resolution as well. So some games definitely run better than others. Now, does it let me change any of those bits? So if I press select, start and the Xbox button, we've got all sorts of options here. I can't remember which settings I changed in the video. So various things can make a difference here, and one of them is the hardware download mode, and unsynchronized sometimes really helps. Not in this case. F9. So that's software renderer. Yeah, that feels pretty decent. I don't know if the hardware part made the difference, but ooh, what's going on there? Yeah, that doesn't seem to be slowing down now with those two things. As I say, it's very much game dependent. Some games will run straight away perfectly. This one needs a bit of changes just to kind of help it. But I'm happy with that. So let's quit out of that. So we do close game and exit without saving. That will take us back into RetroPi. Now we go back into RetroPi setup and go to configuration and tools, and we've got auto start here. Let's click on that and start emulation station at boot. And let's go back and reboot and see what happens. So we get the RetroPi splash screen and it launches into emulation station. Perfect. And if I want to quit out of that, I can hit start and I can go to quit and quit emulation station, and yes. And then all we need to do for a desktop environment is type in startx. And we've got the best of both worlds because we've got a desktop operating system to be able to play around with and add ROMs and BIOS files and so on. But we can also get it to automatically boot, ready for a controller. Now in the RetroPi folder and BIOS, you can get full sets of the BIOS files and the bin files and everything for RetroPi. You just got to look around for them. I'm not going to include any, but this is the location that they go in. And in fact my USB stick, if I plug it in, has got a load of them on there. So if I go to RetroPi mount and BIOS, yeah, you can see there's all sorts in here. I wonder if that PS2 one was in there that yeah, so I use these for the standalone version. Let's get another ROM in there. Let's go with GameCube to see how well that works. But we do have Wii there as well. Wii's a bit hit and miss. Some games definitely don't run full speed. So let's get a GameCube game. You can see I've got all sorts of folders in here. Pretty much everything that exists. I've got a game in each one as well. I've got a game in pretty much each one. Quite a few in Commodore 64. But yeah, I tried to put all sorts in there. So GameCube. Let's go with a bit of Hulk, because I always like playing the Hulk one. And then home, RetroPi, ROMs, GameCube, and let's just paste that in. So I can eject my USB stick, and let's do a reboot here. So it reboots into RetroPi. And now we've got two systems, so GameCube is there. Let's launch Hulk. So the controller wasn't working. What you've got to do is go back to the desktop. So startx. I was going around in circles trying to find out how to configure the controller, but then I saw this post and there's some changes you can make here, but at the end of it, it's just got this Qt QPA platform, and if you run it, it launches it within the desktop, so then you can configure it, and you can configure it for Wii and also for GameCube as well. So I'm just going to do GameCube for now. So controllers, configure, and I can change it at the top here to my Xbox controller, and then I can start mapping them. You often find that these are the wrong way around, but we'll see. I'm doing it as the controller is. And I do Z, I do select and start for start, obviously. Control stick. And I've got the D-pad and the right joystick. And then we've got triggers. We've got left and right. I think that's it. If I hit save. So we can close that down. I'm hoping. Close all this down. And I'll restart and give it a try. Let's try that again. Okay, that's definitely responding my controller now. Just going to turn it right down because I can't hear it because I've left it on HDMI. Okay, working perfectly. Yeah, it is such an enjoyable game. Yep, happy with that. So start, select an Xbox. Oh, that doesn't quit me out, or does it? No, that doesn't quit me out. I still don't know how to quit out. Okay, so escape quits me out. So it looks like I might be able to set a hotkey. So let's quit out of that. Go back into the desktop environment. And then we can launch the GUI. So let's go options, hotkey settings, Xbox button. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like the Xbox button's going to quit me out now, hopefully. Close. Let's close all this down and restart. And I'm happy to say that that works. You just need to be far enough into the game. If you press it right at the start, it doesn't do it. But if I press it now, you can see that it quits back to emulation station, just as I wanted it to be. So now I've got PS2 and GameCube, and if I add more ROMs for more systems, I'll have other things on there as well. So I'm going to quit out of this. I'm going to delete the games and also the bin file from the PlayStation bit and make this available for download. Okay, so hope all this helps. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.